Welcome into another edition of the Extra Mile podcast presented by the Mississippi Department of Transportation. I'm MDOT Deputy Director of Public Affairs, Paul Katool. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Will Kraft. He is the man when it comes to government and constituent affairs here at the agency. Today, very excited. We have the big boss. We have MDOT Executive Director Brad White in studio with us today. It's actually his fifth appearance on the show, and if you've been with us from the very beginning, he was the first guest back in July of 2021. He's going to look back with us at the 2022 calendar year and then kind of look ahead to 2023, including the upcoming legislative session. So let's get into it. Brad, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate all that you do.
Of course. So like I just mentioned, we kind of want to look back at 2022. I know that you said, in terms of the session and some funding stuff, it was one of the most successful years for MDOT in recent history. But I know you have some other things you want to tout, including that. So kind of take us back and look at 2022.
We had a good year. As far as the contracts that were awarded, we broke records with awarding over $964 million worth of highway and bridge projects around the state fiscal year 22. And we did have a wonderful legislative session, thanks to a lot of hard work from Will and others on the team here that spent a lot of time and over across the street working with legislators. We had a good year that received additional funding, but more importantly kept the flexibility within our federal program with no earmarks, which I thought was quite a feat. Probably the thing that I'm most proud about that we've done over the last years is our ability to positively address the salary needs around our agency and be able to begin the process, and it is a process, one that we're not through with yet, at realigning salaries and hopefully getting our wages that we're paying to the men and women that make up the MDOT family to a level where they're able to live comfortably and able to do the things that they need to do in order to take care of their family and live the American dream. And that's something that was long overdue. And our ability to have multiple range shifts over the last year is probably the thing that I'm most proud of.
Lots of good stuff from MDOT this past year.
Yeah, been plenty of good things to talk about for 2022. And looking ahead a little bit to 23, we got a bunch of great projects on the books for next year, some big ones, some small ones. We're going to be getting the work out there. Anything jumping off the page that make folks aware of?
Well, our big capacity projects that we will have under construction is Greenville Bypass, of course, in the Central District. The Commission just awarded the Highway 57 hurricane evacuation project where we'll be adding lanes down in Jackson County in the Southern District. And then next summer, we should be awarding the contract or letting the contract on Highway 15 in North Mississippi around Union County, which is a much-needed project along that corridor, too. And thanks to the additional funds that we've received, not just from the legislature, but through the reauthorization of the Federal Highway Administration and the federal infrastructure package that was done, the Commission's been able to revamp and start back with our capacity program. So we've got projects all over the state, from the Tennessee line to the Gulf Coast, that we're doing pre-construction work on now in preparation for other projects like that in the near future. So looking forward to seeing a lot of those come to fruition.
And I know one thing that, talking about the session specifically, giving us the extra money, although we did get hit with a lot of inflation and, impact our budget that way, that extra money was able to kind of keep us in line, right?
The money that the legislature gave us was given to us, for example, the $40 million, $45 million for paving. Hopefully, we had thought at the time that they gave it to us that we would be able to escalate that many more projects. And you're right, due to inflation and material cost and things like that, a lot of that money was used just to keep us on schedule. So thanks to their support, we were able to maintain our schedule, and we were able to escalate a few of those projects. So we were able to do a lot in a short time frame.
Stuff. So we also, Will just mentioned the legislative session. That begins January 3rd. Is that correct? So what are you kind of, we had a really successful one last year. So what are you looking forward to in 2023 when it comes to the session in MDOT?
Well, number one is to do no harm. And I think we had a good session this past session, and I think that will provide a great baseline of where to begin our work this coming year. I believe that we've been able to build up our trust with the members of the legislature. I think we've been able to show them that we will invest wisely the dollars that they give us and that they authorize us to use from the federal government. And so I expect for us to have a session similar to what we've done this last go-around, with continued funding, with continued flexibility, and with the continued authority to address our salary needs around the state. There are a few minor things that we'll go to them about. We are the Department of Transportation, not just the old highway department. And we're having discussions with the legislative leadership about providing additional funds for our multimodal program that we use to assist with rail and aeronautics and ports around the state. And so there will be a lot of meaningful conversations, I expect, with that to try to ensure that we're able to address all the modes of transportation in a way that helps foster economic development, community development around the state.
Excellent, excellent.
You know, and this is one thing, it's certainly not the first time we've had an election year and a session that happens every 4 years, you know, or otherwise. But for the folks out there that may not know, is there a little different kind of feel of things when an election year?
I would expect so. The last time that I was at MDOT during an election year, I was working for Commissioner Hall. So it was extremely different in a commissioner's office. I don't know what it would be like in the director's office, but you know, that it creates a lot of sensitivity issues to when unfortunately, a lot of the projects that we have, there's no way to build a highway through a populated area without some level of inconvenience. And so I'm sure that we'll hear a lot more complaints and stuff like that from that vantage point. Political signs are always kind of a pain in the neck for the Department of Transportation because they seem to pop up like a bunch of mushrooms all over our right-of-way around the state, and so they have to be disposed of, and that normally is a tedious task. But we've been through election years many times before, and we'll get through this one as well. I'm very confident in the men and women that make up our team and their ability to act with professionalism and continue to serve the people in a way that the people deserve to be served. And as long as they continue doing that, I think we'll be fine.
No doubt.
If I may kind of piggyback off that a little bit, it's always been, and since I've been here, it's been a conversation about that, you know, the long-term sustainable revenue source. I know that, again, it's been at the forefront for some time now. Is that something that may get brought up next year, you think maybe?
I think so, especially behind the scenes. There are already conversations about that. With the growth of electric and hybrid vehicles, I think that everyone realizes that long-term fuel tax is going to be an unsustainable stream of revenue for us to be able to rely upon, like we have for the last 100 years that MDOT's been functioning. And so coming up with other ways that we can have committed revenue for this core function of government is going to be very vital, because that's the only way in which we are able to fund our projects is cash flowing them over time. And so while it's great when we receive the one-time money, shots in the arm, the need for preparation when it comes to construction projects requires a dedicated stream of revenue that we can rely on. And so if it goes unattended, then I believe at some point in the future we're going to continue to see our ability to meet our mission start to fail. In fact, due to lack of resources, the previous commission, you know, we had about a 10-year moratorium on capacity projects. Right. In order to make certain that all of the funds that we had was spent in protecting the current investment that the taxpayers have, to the tune of about $65 billion worth of investment around the state. So being able to have dedicated revenue with which we can continue to plan and build and add to the efficiency of our system is just going to be vital. And I look forward to working with the legislative leadership to tackle that project.
Good stuff. Yeah, that's certainly been, when we've been on the road the past year, that's certainly been a big topic of conversation amongst a lot of different of our guests. Let's see. So anything else looking forward to in 2023 outside of the session? Anything on the horizon?
No, I know I sound like a broken record talking about our salaries, but that is something that we've come a long way, but we've still got a long way to go. Gotcha. And I certainly appreciate the great work that the State Personnel Board they've been a real partner with us in trying to address that. And so being able to continue to move the needle in a positive direction that will allow us to keep good employees and recruit good employees, I think, is going to be key for our long-term success. So to me, that's the bullseye that we've got to continue shooting at.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. And Paul, you just mentioned that, speaking of topics that have come up multiple times on our podcast, we've had now 40 episodes. Isn't that right? Yeah.
Wow.
This is episode XL right here, extra large with the Roman numeral. We've had some great ones. We've had some great guests all year. I think we've had some favorites and been some otherwise, but all have been entertaining and very informative. I think probably my favorite episode, what I learned the most with Secretary of State Michael Watson. I feel like that whole episode, I was just soaking up so much information and knowledge. You got a favorite that stands out, or maybe even a most memorable moment?
Oh, goodness. So I really enjoyed doing the legislative session. I think that was Brad's idea, and it was really great. I mean, I learned a lot myself. I'm a competitive guy. If we're keeping score, I want to win. And so we won several national awards for the podcast, which was pretty exciting. So that was a pretty big highlight, I would say.
Little did we know we were going to get an award recognition out of this thing.
It's crazy.
Well, and y'all provided a great service for the agency by doing this podcast, because it allowed a platform that we could bring other people from outside of the department in. Then not only were we able to learn from them, but they were able to learn from us. And many of those folks that came through, this was the first time for them to be in our building and to be able to be around some of our team members. And I think that you helped put the best foot forward for the agency by offering the podcast, not just for us, but for the guests that we brought into the agency, and just helped forge stronger relationships. And that's what politics is all about. I mean, governing is a team sport, and by bringing people in, it was just like adding them to our team. And having Lieutenant Governor Hoseman, Speaker Gunn, and a whole cadre of committee chairmen and other state elected officials, it really made a positive difference, I believe, in our ability to be successful across the street during the session.
That is certainly good to hear.
It's been fun, too.
For sure.
Been a lot of fun.
And just a note on that, we will once again be going weekly in the legislative session. So beginning in January, we'll be bringing some more, guests out inside and outside of MDOT in. So looking forward to that for sure.
Kind of wrapping up a little bit here. It is the holiday season. Hopefully everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I know I did. I ate too much and yet not enough. How that happens, I'm not sure. But let's talk a little bit about holiday traditions. We got Christmas coming up. Brad, do you have any big holiday traditions, Christmas-oriented, coming up?
We always gather at my mother's on Christmas Eve, the night before. So looking forward to being with family doing that. We'll, of course, do something with my father and his side of the family a little prior to that. I'm mainly looking forward to having some rest and preparing for the session to start in January.
That's right. Paul, what about you?
Go. Oh, goodness, yeah. Big food guy. So my mom's Mexican, my dad's Lebanese. So in addition to kind of like the regular traditional food, we do tamales and Lebanese food. Shout out to Albert White. He's married to a Lebanese woman, and we talk about Lebanese food all the time. So go get you some if you've never had it. So what about you, Will?
Yeah, we don't have any, great food diversity going on there. We are all straight up Southern Mississippians. So we'll be bouncing back and forth from Yazoo City, folks in Yazoo, and my folks down in Mendenhall. But no crazy traditions. My mom's birthday is actually December or New Year's Eve, so we ended up inevitably, we're doing Christmas stuff, and then we throw a birthday in there as well right at the end. But there's always good places. I'll be looking forward to seeing where we celebrate the new year. I can't believe, golly, we're halfway through December, and 2023, here we are. It's like, I feel like we snapped our fingers, and all of a sudden we're in December. But that's all I got on that. No great crazy Christmas traditions for us. Lots of dirty Santa.
Love it. That can always be a good time. Well, so we've covered a lot of ground so far on the podcast today. Brad, we want to thank you as always for coming on. Thanks for your leadership and supporting the podcast. We really appreciate it. Let's go ahead and wrap things up. Remember, everybody out there, it's the holiday season. Drive sober. Put down the cell phone. Don't text and drive. Let's get everybody, where they need to be safely this holiday season. And speaking of the public, we want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening to the Extra Mile podcast. You can find episodes of the podcast. You can listen and watch by visiting gomdot.com/the extra mile. We want to thank our producer, Katie Hornsby, and our editor, Drew Hall. They've done a ton of good work behind the scenes this year. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, social media at Mississippi DOT for updates on traffic travel throughout the holiday season. Remember to drive smart out there on Mississippi highways.